We've got some good news coming out of these college protests. They're really riots now at this point. Really good news, in fact. Some positive information coming out of this story that goes well beyond just the dirtbags at UCLA who got their heads beat up, smashed. I don't root for violence, but if someone's going to be a victim, how about people who are rooting for terrorists? Anyway, we've got good news, and we'll share it with you. We've got, oh my gosh, Senator John Kennedy, one of our favorites, once again in the hearing room, and you're going to love it. He goes after Jamie Raskin this time on climate change. And a great idea from the Biden administration, how to solve the Palestinian conflict, the whole problem over there. We'll just import Hamas here to the United States. They're refugees, after all. They're really considering that. We'll break it down for you, plus a whole lot more coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. My mind is just full of all of the great stories that we're about to get to. I can't wait to just jump out of the starting blocks and get right to it. And we will. But first, I want to ask you, please, could you like this video and subscribe to it? You know how this works. Let's face it, you're here because you already like it. So if you like it, it will help whatever video platform we're on right now. It'll help get this in front of other people so we can continue to grow our product, but also spread the word of a pretty reasonable conservative thought and media analysis to, well, all the people who need to see and hear it. Also, if you can subscribe, that would be like even better. If you don't mind, we'd really appreciate it. Just do it. Okay, sorry. Don't know what came over me. Really good news overnight at these campus, let's not call them protests anymore. They're riots. We saw what happened at UCLA. At Columbia, the protesters, the rioters, it went well beyond just their illegal and violent takeover of the quad and center of campus with their encampment. No. They decided to attack one of the buildings. And, well, that's when the police drew the line. But before the cops even showed up to drag the dirtbag pro-terrorist idiots out of the building, a couple of brave Columbia University students stood their ground. I mean, this is exactly what we would want our sons to do in this case, right? And after the brouhaha, they showed up on Laura Ingram's show. Take a look.
Two brave students at Columbia faced off against the angry mob as they tried to break into Hamilton Hall.
Running circle blockade around these three. We're going to move them out. Let's go. Another human chain. People united will never be. Get someone wrap around. Get inside.
Well, I want to point out here again, isn't it lovely? Look at these beautiful young kids, kind of nerdy, not going to lie, might be computer science students. I think they might play D&D. Definitely, I might see them, when I'm playing Overwatch. They could be one of the dudes I'm playing with on the team. But look at them. They're done. They're fed up. And show the contrast here of these kids who are proud to show their face. I love this contrast whenever we can show it. They're proud to show who they are and stand up for what they stand for. And look at all of these moronic idiots who don't even have an original thought in their mind. They just repeat the same chants over and over again that's been programmed into their heads. And they all cover their faces as they inflict violence and vandalism on our society. It's such a clear contrast as to who's on the right side, the bright side of this issue, and who's not, who's part of the dark forces here. I mean, why would you cover your face unless you knew you were doing something wrong?
Is someone recording this? Are you recording this? 100% assault. What is your name? What is your name? Can you
Joining me now, Rory Wilson and Charles Beck, the two students you just saw. You guys, first of all, major kudos to you. I don't know whether just to congratulate you or declare you insane for trying to face off against that mob. But Rory, let's start with you. What made you decide to take that stand?
Well, it was pretty much on the spur of the moment. My friends got me out of bed, told me something was happening on campus. I ran over and I saw that it was pretty much chaos. People were smashing in the windows. Massive mob gathered outside of Hamilton Hall, piling up chairs on the inside and that sort of thing. So I wanted, just kind of off the cuff of it, wanted to show that I disapproved of what was going on, that this was completely inappropriate, destroying the property of our university, and that this is not at all the way that we ought to conduct ourselves in any sort of discourse. And so I just wanted to register my protest against their protest. That's what I was telling them when they were yelling at me, and say, I'll protest your protest. I'm free to do that.
I just want to jump in here, and there's more to this interview, and I want you to see these two young men, to think about what he just said. I wanted it to be known that this is inappropriate, this is wrong, this is not how we go about things. He is the most mature voice on Columbia University campus that you've heard recently, more mature than the faculty, more mature than the university president, more mature than the professors who are standing out there egging these dirtbags on. He's the grown-up in the room, and he's a 22-year-old kid attending Columbia, but he gets it. This is not how we handle things. This isn't appropriate. This is the wrong thing to do, and you can't get even one of the... Okay, there was one professor who said that. We showed you the video last week, and they barred him from campus. Is there any doubt who the good guys are here? All right, more of these guys.
Well, Charles, you actually got dragged away, I understand, at one point. Here's what happened. Watch.
You guys are the ones dragging people away.
All right, this is assault.
You're shoving me. All right,
so you don't want that to ruin your whole life. Oh, sorry, you ruin your whole life.
I'm trying to get even my other friend out.
Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to get them out.
Thank you.
Don't mess. Why are you trying to get us
Okay. Charles, one of your friends said something to you to convince you to move away at that point. What was said?
Yeah, that's a good friend of mine who I've known for quite a couple of years. Essentially, he was really just quite scared for my health and safety. He had sort of had a top field vision of it, and he was afraid that if I'd remained there, that the crowd would have caused me serious bodily injury, even death. And essentially what he whispered to me was, well, something along the lines of, don't be stupid, don't get martyred for a building. Sort of the idea that perhaps it wasn't worth getting that injured. But, I can certainly see where he was coming from. Perhaps part of the sort of move here was I wasn't really thinking, to be entirely honest with you, about my own health and safety. I was more so just thinking of, I don't know, thinking that someone needed to say something. Ideally, someone at our university could sort of say that, well, they didn't agree with what was happening, and they understood it as something fundamentally wrong.
Well, they don't want to debate, Rory. Sorry, Charles, but they don't want to debate. They want their way or the highway. No debate at all. And you guys were, frankly, potential roadkill if you got in the way of that. And you told one of our producers, Rory, that I guess you thought someone might have been following you on your walk home from Hamilton Hall. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's hard to know. There were a lot of shady people going around outside of campus. There were people in the crowd there that I'm not sure if they were students, but definitely on the outside, there was footage of people climbing into or John Jay Hall from outside of campus, all in black. And yeah, there was a car that was full of masked people who seemed to be keeping an eye on us. I'm not entirely sure, but we stayed together as a group with some of our friends to make sure that we got back safely.
Well, I heard both of you had a run-in with this professional protester, this woman, Lisa Fithian. Watch this.
We as students of this university are fully free to stand here in public. Public part of the university.
You have way more of a right. You have way more of a right to do what we're doing than any of these people have to destroy this building.
No one's destroying the building.
I beg to differ. People have broken the windows with the intention of taking this building so that they can take the university hostage. You know what? I'm glad to be here, Rory.
Okay. Rory, or Charles, I guess now. We're going to talk more about her in a moment, but how did this Lisa introduce herself to you? Did she tell you that she was a protester, Charles?
She claimed that she actually was just there to make sure that no one got hurt, and was just there to ensure that, that people sort of stayed out of the way who shouldn't have been in the way. She actually tried to sort of present herself as more of a moderating character who was sort of there to just sort of ensure that things were quote unquote safe. She also said that she was quote unquote with the university in some capacity, though I had no idea what that meant. Yeah, being honest.
Yeah. So
hey Rory, Rory, what's your message to the Board of Trustees tonight? Who could could have shut this thing down a week ago?
My message would be that they just need to get things under control and give graduating seniors their commencement. It really, seniors, people who are seniors right now have gone through a lot in their college career. And so it's the least that they can do to just get things under control and allow people to finish up their college career with an actual graduation.
Rory and Charles, come to me if you need work, because we're always looking for brave students. Fantastic. Good work, and thank you for actually representing normal America.
Great kids at Columbia University. And just so you know, Laura, they've got a Columbia education. They might be able to do better than working as a production assistant on your show. That said, wouldn't be a bad career move for them. Lisa Fithian, you heard them refer to Lisa Fithian. She has been glowingly described as a trainer of mass rebellion. Lisa Fithian was right in the middle of this thing. Lisa Fithian is 63 years old. I don't think she's a student at Columbia University. Lisa Fithian began her professional protesting, rioting in the mid-70s. She does this for a living. It's called community organizing. Remember when we elected a president who was a community organizer? This is what we got. Fundamental transformation of America. You also saw that moment where these rioters with their faces covered with their keffiyeh scarf, the terrorist scarf that they probably just purchased from Banana Republic. You saw them pushing themselves against the blonde kid with the glasses, and then repeating over and over again, this is assault, like they're accusing the kid, the victim of assault. This is a classic Antifa tactic. You see this all the time. You ask Julio Rosas, who covers this stuff as an independent journalist, Bill Mallusian, who's been down at the border. Whoever covers these riots, whenever Antifa shows up, this is what they do. But thank God this story has turned a little bit, where guys like that are flexing their toxic masculinity and actually setting things right. In fact, over the weekend, we saw exactly that at the campus of Arizona State University, where a fraternity decided to leave their kegger for a while, head over to campus, and tear down the encampment and throw it right where it belongs, in a trash bin.
Right. We've got the white frat boys throwing away protesters' belongings, and we've got the pigs in brown doing nothing about it, although we are being forced off campus.
The white frat boys are ruining everything. No, the white frat boys are keeping their campus clean and tidy and orderly, because the white frat boys paid tuition and they deserve a clean and tidy and orderly campus. And also the white frat boys' parents pay taxes in the state of Arizona, and that is Arizona State University, isn't it? And so they're doing everybody a favor, and we praise and thank the white frat boys. Those white frat boys aren't alone, by the way. Over at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, the white frat boys were walking along campus, and they saw that on the main flagpole, the Palestinian flag had replaced the American flag, and well, the white frat boys wanted to do something about it.
Was so proudly we heard up at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stars and bright stars through the perilous times. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets ran fire, the bombs bursting in air.
I would love to hear another chorus of that, but the video ended. Yeah, that's right. By the way, last I checked, North Carolina is one of those swing states, right, where the presidential election might be on the bubble or close. I don't think so. Not when this is the scene on a college campus with 20-year-olds. I don't think so. There's your white frat boys doing the right thing and replacing the Palestinian flag with Old Glory, taking it upon themselves with their toxic masculinity. Yeah, we can use a little toxic masculinity right now. Here's the scene as described by Guillermo Estrada, one of the students involved here. Today was a sad day, yet empowering day at Chapel Hill. When I walked to class, I saw the Palestinian flag raised on our quad flagpole and was immediately upset at the act that these protesters, in quotes, had made. I cannot say I am fully educated on the Israel-Palestine conflict, but it upset me that my country's flag had been disrespected in order to advocate for another. Shortly after, Chancellor Roberts came with police officers to hang the flag once again. They were met with profanity, middle fingers, thrown bottles, rocks, and water. When the flag was raised once again, the Greek community, that would be the fraternities, began singing the national anthem. As the chancellor left, the quad erupted into chaos as protesters began removing the flag once again, preparing to destroy it. My fraternity brothers and others ran over to hold it up in order for it not to touch the ground. People began throwing water bottles at us, rocks, sticks, calling us profane names. We stood for an hour defending the flag so many fight to protect. My parents started a new life in the United States, a country that has helped them flourish and raise 2 kids. I grew up in a military community and saw firsthand the sacrifices they make. I will not stand for the disrespect these protesters. My LDOC will be memorable in knowing that my fraternity brothers and others fought to keep the flag up. But it will also be memorable in knowing that so many yearn to disrespect it. Hard to get through that without a tear in my eye and a lump in my throat, because as we see what transpired this week, as we see what we're told are the bright, shining minds of America's future degenerate into misguided, robotic, riotous masses chanting and cheering for terrorists that just murdered 1,200 people. As we saw that, it was easy to lose hope. It was easy to think that the future of our country is going down the toilet. And then this happens. This happens. And Guillermo Estrada, a second-generation immigrant whose parents came to this country so that Guillermo could have a good life, came here legally, came here the right way. Guillermo Estrada tells the story of how he and his fellow classmates stood for over an hour, as you see right there, to make sure that that flag didn't touch the ground. We might just make it through. We might actually make it through, as long as Guillermo Estrada and his friends are there. By the way, if you're interested, someone has set up a GoFundMe page for those guys. The Phi Kappa Phi men who defended the flag raised some money to throw them a rager. Let's get an update on that total. Wow. Did you see that? I had this page up about half an hour ago. It was at 11,000. It has doubled now. $22,000. That's going to be a hell of a party. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you for saving that flag. Thank you for doing something right. And thank you for giving my generation a little bit of hope that we're not quite done yet. Listen, we were hoping that this first quarter would see a turn in the economy, specifically with inflation. You see, we get better inflation. That means we get lower interest rates, and that means the housing market can come back. That means the value of the dollar is stronger, and that means investments can actually matter again. Instead of having every dollar you've been saving be worth less every day, because the dollar is worth less due to inflation. I say we were hoping for that, but it didn't happen. As you know, all 3 months so far this year, we've seen terrible inflation numbers. The interest rate is still sky high. This ain't going away. But you can either face reality or you can bury your head in the sand. Now, I think if you're watching this show, you're ready for reality. You can handle the truth. You want to know how to save and protect your savings. And my answer for you is Birch Gold Group. That's right. You can diversify a portion of your savings into gold with Birch Gold Group. Gold is your hedge against inflation. Birch Gold makes it easy to own. See, they'll help you convert an existing IRA or 401k, money that you've already been saving. They'll help you convert that into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, and you won't pay a penny out of pocket. No, this is money you're already putting away. Just convert it to gold with Birch Gold Group. They've got an A+ rating with Better Business Bureau, thousands of satisfied customers. You can trust Birch Gold too. Just text my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898. You'll get a free info kit on gold, and then you'll talk to a precious metals specialist on how you can protect your savings from persistent inflation with gold. That's Larry. Text Larry. You see it right there, but you know how to spell it. It's easy. Larry, Larry. Text that to 989898 for Birch Gold Group. All right, we go from some heroic college kids who are doing the right thing on campus, from tearing down the encampment at Arizona State University to protecting the building on the campus of Columbia University, to saving the American flag from destruction on University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. We turn from those great guys to the dirtbags who were leading these protests, these riots, these illegal activities at Columbia University. They held a press conference. Think about that for a minute. These kids are violating the law on a daily basis, and they're holding a press conference. And just wait till you hear what their demands are.
Why should the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
First of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries. We want to take over this building. Now, would you please bring us food and water?
Nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food.
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it violently.
They haven't stopped it.
I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
This is like chef's kiss perfection. This is so pristine. May I pull a Larry on this and break it down a bit, piece by piece? Let's begin with her first demand that, hey, we paid for the meal plan. By the way, honey, I doubt you paid for it. Mommy and daddy did. Maybe grandma and grandpa, trust fund, not sure. But we paid for a meal plan. Where's our food?
Why should the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Now, I don't know if you've heard the reporter because it's off mic, but it's a great question. I want to know who this reporter is. Why should the university be obligated to provide you food when you have taken over the campus in violation of the school's rules? Good question.
First of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that
they're obligated. So I don't know if it's been a while since you've been in college or if you've sent your kids to college. My kid's in university right now, and we pay for his meal plan. And here's how the meal plan works. You go to the cafeteria or whatever sort of little restaurant type food location they've got set up on campus. You get your food. You swipe your card that daddy is paid for, and that goes off of your meal plan. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. Just go to where the food is provided and use your meal card. Of course, they don't want to leave their encampment because they're afraid they might get arrested. So now they're angry because they want Colombia to bring them food. They want their protest against the man, their insurrection, to be catered by the people they're rioting against. Understand something. Everybody thinks that this is an anti-Israel protest or a pro-Palestinian protest. No. This is a protest against Columbia University. People are missing sight of this. The whole reason they are out there, they claim, is that they want Columbia University to divest from Israel. They want them to remove all of their investments from their big fat endowment from any company that is associated with the state of Israel. Because, of course, they hate Jews and they're anti-Semites. So they're literally protesting against Columbia. We hate Columbia. And oh, by the way, Columbia should be feeding us because we paid for our meal plan. Nothing stopping you from getting food on the meal plan. Get off your lazy ass from your little pup tent, go to where the food is, and get your food. But they're afraid to do that because they might get arrested.
There was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to.
So the reporter said, well, where our understanding is you want food and water to be brought into you. Is that correct?
Be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill?
Hold on. Is that an option? Are you asking rhetorically? Because, I mean, if that's an option, that might be a way to get them off campus. So she's guilting the Columbia University administration, who she's protesting against, by the way. She's guilting them. Do you want us to starve out here? I mean, what kind of human? Well, no, I don't want you to starve. I've got an idea. Why don't you get your ass up and leave? How dare you? How dare you not provide us food and water? What do you want us to do? If that's the option, we might take it. Door number 2, please.
Even if they disagree with you, if the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like,
you know who else is asking for basic humanitarian treatment? The hostages that Hamas is holding and has held for 7 months now. They would love to have the problems this chick has. The people that she is supporting and elevating and celebrating on a daily basis in her illegal protest are actually holding over 200 innocent Israelis and Americans hostage, treating them in the most inhumanitarian way. And now she's demanding humanitarian aid for her and her rich, elite Ivy League college students who are sleeping outside by their own volition. And now they're not. This is just, we want basic humanity. How about some basic humanity for the hostages? Can we start there? How about you advocate for that, and then maybe we'll throw you a bottle of water. Or we'll throw it at you.
Could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately, in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries. We want to take over this building. Now, would you please bring us food? All
right. Did you hear that? I really want to know who this reporter is. The reporter just said, well, they've kind of put themselves in this position voluntarily, right? See, it sounds like you're saying, we want to be revolutionaries. Now, please bring us some food. It's so great. And look at her face as she realizes how ridiculous this all sounds. Look at her face right now as the cognitive dissonance of who she is, what she stands for, what she's asking for, and what her behavior has done is all falling around her. Look at her face as she recognizes what a trap she has laid for herself. And this reporter has showed a spotlight on it. And now listen to how she rationalizes all of it.
Water.
Nobody's asking them to bring anything.
Actually, that's exactly what they're asking.
We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian.
So now it's don't violently stop. And of course, there's been no violence against them. Don't violently stop us from bringing food. Do you realize how in just a minute and 5 seconds, The demands have changed radically. Now the demand is don't violently stop us from bringing in our own food and water. And the next reporter is going to ask, have they violently stopped you from bringing in your own food and water? And watch the answer.
In aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food.
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it
But
violently.
they haven't stopped it yet.
I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
So it's too good. So it immediately shifts to, we're just asking them to not violently stop us from bringing food and water in. Well, have they violently stopped you from bringing water in? Well, we're looking for a commitment from them that they won't violently stop us from bringing food and water in. Okay, but they haven't done it yet. I don't know to what extent, but we're just looking for a commitment. And just so you know, this woman is now on the short list of most Democrat congressmen and women and senators to be one of their chief staffers as soon as this whole thing is over. I assure you, this woman is going places. We will be contending with her. She may be the next AOC in a couple of years. And you just saw the brilliance of her position. Meanwhile, another one of them actually talked to Fox and Friends this morning.
How do you feel about them taking over the building right now?
I think that their cause is a just cause, and I hope that the administration really hears their demands. I think they're just demands.
Do you feel like it was right to hold 3 of the janitor workers hostage within inside of the building?
I think that's a really false narrative.
That's what the janitors are saying, that they weren't allowed to leave.
I think that that's a really false narrative.
Even if the janitors are saying that, you're saying that that's not true.
I think that it's a really false narrative that the students took anyone hostage.
How do you feel about
honestly, I weep. And Lawrence is doing a great job here, just sort of maintaining his cool. But repeat it over and over. It's a false narrative. So the janitors say they weren't allowed to leave. It's a false narrative. So you're saying they're lying. It's just a false narrative. And that's all you got. And then they are either programmed to deliver propaganda or they are brain dead. Possibly both. I always leave open the opportunity that it could be both. But this is an Ivy League student. And boy, she's really showing her intelligence and her basic wisdom.
Some of the Jewish students saying that they don't feel safe here on campus.
I think that this is also a really false narrative that's being promoted.
Do you think October 7th and the attack that happened is a false narrative? Do you believe that some of the women were raped?
Colleague just came back.
So this is what happened.
Can you get out of my face, please?
So this is what you see at these protests. Once you get into the nitty gritty of what happened on October the 7th, the rape of women, what's happening there, they deny what happened. As you know, that is actually factual now, that the janitorial workers were blocked inside of the building. And anytime you bring that up, the Jewish cause, the Jewish people, the kids that feel unsafe on campus, they deny the reality of it.
They sure do, because it's a false narrative, everybody. Last night, Donald Trump, New Yorker, watching his city get destroyed under Democrat leadership and Democrat management, he called into Hannity.
What is your reaction to the news unfolding?
Well, it's just such a sad thing to see, Sean. When you look at this, it's not even believable. If you go back a year or go back 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, this would not even be possible to think about. Nobody would be thinking this could happen. You look at the anti-Semitism, the hatred of Israel by so many people. You go back 10 years, I mean, Israel was protected by Congress, and now Congress is just doing numbers that are unbelievable with, I think, a very, very small group of people within Congress, and it's got to stop. But we have to go back to the roots. We have to protect. We have to stop the anti-Semitism that's just pervading our country right now, and Biden has to do something. Biden is supposed to be the voice of our country, and it's certainly not much of a voice. It's a voice that nobody's heard. And look, I don't think he's able to do it. I don't think he's got what it takes to do it, but he's got to. He's got to strengthen up, and he's got to be heard.
Well, look, I never thought, Mr. President, in my lifetime that I'd hear, anti-Semitism in the halls of Congress. I mean, I never thought we'd be witnessing and hearing chants of death to America, death to Israel on college campus after college campus after college campus. I never thought we'd see this in our lifetime. I thought never again meant never again. But never again seems to be unfolding before our eyes. From the river to the sea, death to America, death to Israel, calls for intifada. This is a frightening time for our country. And in a state like New York that has changed dramatically from the state that we grew up in, now these students that'll be arrested, they'll be released within hours, probably the charges dropped, and there'll be no consequences, which will only embolden them. Your thoughts?
Well, I really think you have a lot of paid agitators, professional agitators in here, too. And I see it all over. And, when you see signs and they're all identical, that means they're being paid by a source. These aren't hand-painted signs where people would go to their basement and paint something because they really believed it. These are all signs that are identical. They're made by the same printer. And, when you see that, that means there's somebody at top that's paying or a group that's paying. And they're doing great disservice to the world, but they're doing great disservice to our country. But when you look at New York in a state like this, but look at other cities, it's not a lot different. It's frankly worse in some places than it is right now in New York. And I think the New York City's finest have been incredible. The way they've been, it's not over yet, but the way they walked in and the way they climbed through that window, they were not afraid of anything. And it looks like they've got it maybe clamped down, but it should never have gotten to this, and they should have done it a lot sooner than before they took over the building, because it would have been a lot easier if they were in tents rather than a building.
Yeah. So, and he said, where's the president? Where's Joe Biden? Where is Joe Biden? Joe Biden, the man who ran in 2020 as the great healer and the great uniter, that we want to put all the chaos and anger and violence in the streets behind us. Remember all the violence in the streets that were perpetrated by Democrat activists with Black Lives Matter? Oh, yeah. When you donated to Black Lives Matter, the money all went through Act Blue, which is a Democrat fundraising engine. And then Black Lives Matter doled out that money to various Democrat candidates to help them win the election. So that was all a campaign operation, basically. So Joe Biden, after all that violence and all the anger and all the histrionics, he said, elect me. I'm going to calm things down. I'm going to unite us all. We got to put these ugly days behind us. And now it's even worse than it was before. And these are his people. These are his people. Nobody can say that any of these protests lean to the right. These are not MAGA fascists, guys, right? These are all people who have aligned themselves with Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and the Squad and Nancy Pelosi. They do their bidding. And where is Joe Biden? He's silent. He's saying nothing. You see, the left loves these things. But the problem is, this is starting to hurt him now, and he's terrified. Because if he shows some leadership and actually tries to demonstrate to middle-of-the-road, moderate, regular Americans who hate seeing this happening in this country, then he's going to tick off Rashida Tlaib and tick off the activists and tick off the radicals. And it's all about this, baby. It's all about this right here. You know what this is? This isn't my hand. This is Michigan. This is what those of us who are from Michigan, this is how we call our state. Where are you from in Michigan? Well, I was born right here, used to vacation up here. Hillsdale's right down here. We love Hillsdale. That's Michigan, and this is all about Michigan because someone's whispered in this man's ear, Rashida Tlaib, that if he takes Israel's side and is against the pro-terrorist, pro-Hamas protesters that are tearing down our college campuses right now, that he's going to lose Michigan. And if he loses Michigan, he loses the country. But guess what? They're wrong. The vast majority of American people are on Israel's side in the conflict over in the Middle East, and they hate what they're seeing on our college campuses right now. That's why you're not hearing from Joe Biden. They're keeping him in a box. There's nothing that he can possibly say. And one other thing, shot through the lens of presidential politics, that whole, I'm a uniter, we have to solve the problem of the chaos. All the chaos is because Trump's in the White House. Trump's a madman. Trump's chaotic. Chaos follows him everywhere he goes. He's not decent. Vote for me. I'm decent. I'm a grown-up. I'm not going to let this stuff happen anymore. Throw it all out the window. A huge part of the argument he made, a return to normalcy, remember? It's all gone. It's all out the window. It's all in the trash can. It's shot through the shredder. It's sitting there rotting away in that stack of documents of classified material in his garage right now. That's where that argument is. It ain't going anywhere. He ain't going to use it. He couldn't possibly use it because things are even more chaotic now than they were under Donald Trump. And it's because of Joe Biden, because this is how they got their power in the first place. When you look at New York and Mayor Eric Adams, who also, by the way, rode to power on the idea of Black Lives Matter, and he's one of those, and he used to be a cop, so he's the best one to reform the police, and the police are the problem. Well, earlier today, he actually echoed what Donald Trump said last night, that these are all outside agitators, and they are, through an organized, well-financed, well-funded program, have sown this chaos in his city, in New York.
I just really want to thank Commissioner Weiner. She was the one that was monitoring the situation when I first started seeing the protests take place in the city. It just did not fit right. I saw similar indicators from the Black Lives Matters March when it was brought to my attention that there were those who came to the city to disrupt our city, and she was able, through her team, was able to conduct an investigation, and what I feared was actually materialized and actualized by those who are on the ground. And I know that there are those who are attempting to say, well, the majority of people may have been students. You don't have to be the majority to influence and co-op an operation. That is what this is about. And so if we want to play the word police, you could do so. I want to play the New York City police, where we're going to protect our city from those who are attempting to do what is happening globally. There is a movement to radicalize young people, and I'm not going to wait until it's done and all of a sudden acknowledge the existence of it. This is a global problem that young people are being influenced by those who are professionals at radicalizing our children. And I'm not going to allow that to happen as the mayor of the city of New York.
Now, I just want you to know that during the Black Lives Matters and the Antifa marches of 2020 that I just described, that were designed, remember how we weren't allowed to leave our houses during the pandemic, but as soon as it became a Black Lives Matter protest, riot, and Antifa burned down the city kind of protest, then it's fine. Because, you know, hey, the pandemic doesn't affect people if their politics are Democrat and left wing. And during that whole time, if I said what the mayor just said about how this is a global effort to radicalize students and it's well-funded and well-organized with outside agitators instigating all of this across state lines that should be investigated by the FBI and the Justice Department, because this truly is a RICO situation, when you're funding and organizing criminal behavior across state lines, that is the job of the FBI. If I said that, my account would be deleted on social media. I'd be censored. I'd be told, I'd be fact-checked by PolitiFact and Snopes. There's no evidence to suggest that. This is a conspiracy theory. But now here we are, 4 years later, and Eric Adams is saying it from the position of the mayor's office. By the way, speaking of the mayor's office, is it me, Kevin? Or did Mayor Adams actually deliver these remarks on my set? Was he in our studio?
Oh my gosh, it's identical. That panel.
What is happening? I mean, we've got better lighting, but
yeah, look at that.
Is he trying to do his own Larry show? This is disturbing.
You think he'll tell us about Birch Gold Group soon?
No, God, Birch Gold wouldn't have anything to do with it. He's part of the problem. All right. We should add an American flag, actually, now that I think about it. That's hardly a good look. These are the people who are destroying our college campuses, and make no mistake about it, this is a trial run. They're going to try to destroy our cities. Between now and Election Day, these protests and these encampments that are happening on college campuses, they will begin to take root in the major city square of the big city you live near, if you're in a city or a state that's run by Democrats. That's my prediction. And, well, I'm pretty confident with it because we've seen it every election year for the last 3 election cycles. Donald Trump made some pretty important remarks there. And it's good that this is shot through the lens of presidential politics. Who would you rather have as president right now at a time like this? And who is more on the side of law and order and bringing decency back to this country? I think it seems pretty clear. That said, it's not entirely true that Joe Biden is completely silent on this issue. He's actually come up with a pretty good idea. CBS News is going to break it down for you. They claim that this is an exclusive from their investigative reports, but let me just tell you how this works in Washington, D.C. The CBS News you're about to get, it's not an exclusive. Here's what it is. It is someone working for the Biden administration who has illegally leaked this anonymously to CBS News for the sole purpose of getting it out in the open. But nobody at the White House wants their name on it. So what they do is they call up a reporter at CBS News and they hand them the entire story. Then CBS News repeats it, claim that it's an exclusive that only their great investigative journalism has uncovered, and then they will win a Pulitzer Prize for it next year. That's what this story is. But more importantly, it's the crux of the story, the actual meat of it, that you need to hear right now.
This news exclusively on CBS News. The Biden administration is considering a plan to allow some Palestinian refugees to come here to the United States. That's according to internal federal government documents that were obtained by CBS's Camilo Montoya Galvez. According to the plan, some Palestinians fleeing the war would be offered a permanent safe haven here in the U.S. And one option under consideration is to allow those who have immediate family members who are either American citizens or permanent residents to enter the country if they pass various background checks first. The plans would require coordination with Egypt, which has so far refused to allow large numbers of people from Gaza to cross the border into that country.
That part of the story is my favorite part. I mean, this is the most FUBAR thing that you have ever heard from this administration, and that is saying something. And if you don't know what FUBAR is, Google it. The last part's my favorite part, because the only way we're going to be able to get these Palestinian refugees flown from the Middle East here to America, where they'll be given did you hear that, permanent home, is if Egypt cooperates. You know, Egypt, the country, the Arab country right on the border of Gaza. Because so far they haven't allowed any of these Palestinians into their country. So the Egyptians, who share a border with Gaza and who are actually ethnically and racially and religiously identical to the Palestinians, they refuse to let the refugees into their country, but we are going to fly them into our country. And if that makes perfect logical sense to you, you must have an advanced degree from Columbia University, or really any other liberal arts college in America. So that's the best part of the story. But let's roll it back a little bit to the beginning part of the story. Let's watch it together.
This news exclusively on CBS News.
I've already explained how it's exclusive. This is somebody in the State Department or in the White House who wants to push this narrative, who illegally told it to them. There's no exclusive reporting here. Who can we give it to? You know what? CBS News, they'll do anything we ask them.
The Biden administration is considering a plan to allow some Palestinian refugees to come here to the United States. That's according to internal federal government documents that were obtained by CBS's Camilo Montoya Galvez.
Obtained. They were handed to them. That's what obtained means. So we want to bring Palestinian refugees from Gaza here to America to have a permanent home. And of course, then they show the B-roll of the, starving, homeless.
According to the plan, some Palestinians fleeing the war would be offered a permanent safe haven.
Permanent safe haven. Now, let's just talk for a second here. Why do they need refugee status? Why do they need asylum? They are refugees because there is a war in Gaza right now. Why is there a war in Gaza right now? Well, because the government of Gaza, known as Hamas, they executed a terror attack on innocent people, including Americans and Israelis, on October 7th, killing 1,200 of them and taking 200 innocent people hostage. They're still holding them hostage right now. And that started the war. The government of Gaza did that. Hamas did that. How did Hamas become the government of Gaza? Well, they were elected. They were elected by whom? They were elected by the citizens of Gaza, the same people who are now refugees, whom we are now supposed to take and bring here for a permanent home. Did you follow all that? So the people of Gaza elect Hamas, put them in power, support them. In fact, if you take a poll of the people of Gaza right now, the same Palestinian people we're talking about, by 80%, they still support Hamas. They elect Hamas to be their government. That government, Hamas, sends a violent terrorist attack, killing 1,200 people. That starts the war. And because of the war, those people who elected Hamas are now refugees. And now Egypt won't take them, the country right next to them. But we are supposed to take them, airlift them from the Middle East, and put them here. And by the way, for the last 20 years, more than 20 years, but at least for the last 20 years, 15 years, since Hamas has been in charge of Gaza, they have run all of the schools. They have run all the institutions. They have run all the media. And those schools and those institutions and that media has drummed into the heads of people of Gaza that Israel and America are great Satans. The people of Gaza, who are now admittedly refugees from a war and having a hard time of it right now, they have been trained and educated their entire lives to hate us. And now we're going to bring them here. Oh, and there's one other missing element here that you're probably not hearing completely. So I want to break that down too. Take a listen.
Here in the U.S. And one option under consideration is to allow those who have immediate family members who are either American citizens or permanent residents to enter the country if they pass various background checks first.
One option is that they will live with family members who are already here. And where do those family members live? Michigan. We're back to Michigan. They live in the suburbs of Detroit, Dearborn to be specific, Rashida Tlaib's congressional district. Now, what happens when all of those American-hating, anti-Semitic, Hamas-supporting refugees who admittedly are having a tough time, look, that boy looks like he's real hungry. Too bad mommy and daddy voted for Hamas. What happens when we bring all of those refugees who hate America and are anti-Semitic and fill up Dearborn, Michigan even fuller than it already is? Well, two things happen. The first is that it gives more power to Rashida Tlaib, that congresswoman. Number two, even more insidious, it increases the population of that area so that when we do a census, it means redistricting, because you understand that we apportion our congressional districts not based on the number of U.S. citizens who live in a certain region. It's based on the number of people who are there, regardless of their immigration status. If they're refugees or even if they're illegal immigrants, if the population of an area increases, then that means that more congressional representation will come from that area that has an increased population. And so you're with me, right? Have you connected the dots? All those refugees, all those American-hating, anti-Semitic, Hamas-supporting refugees that we are going to voluntarily bring over from the Middle East without any congressional approval, and we're going to put them in Dearborn, Michigan, that means that in the next census, we've got a new congressional district, and that means we have another Rashida Tlaib, a Democrat. That's what they're doing. And they're going to do it unilaterally. They're going to do it without any congressional approval. And you know the last time they did this? It was under, I believe it was under Barack Obama. May have been George W. Bush. In war-torn Somalia. And we airlifted a ton of America-hating, radical anti-Semitic refugees from Somalia. They didn't go to Michigan. No, they ended up in Minnesota. And there was such a high concentration of them in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area that they got a new congressional district. And eventually, because they were here legally as refugees, they got their green cards, they got their citizenship, and they got the vote. And the next thing you know, it's Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. And to be fair, she properly represents the Somali immigrants because, as I said, just like them, she is anti-Semitic and hates America. And when she toured the illegal protests in Columbia University, this is how she characterized it.
How do you think this will translate to the Jewish students who are facing anti-Semitism here on campus?
So I actually met a lot of Jewish students that are in the encampment. And I think it is really unfortunate that people don't care about the fact that all Jewish kids should be kept safe and that we should not have to tolerate anti-Semitism or bigotry for all Jewish students, whether they are pro-genocide or anti-genocide.
Wow. Can we break that down together? Yeah, I do love watching these little clips and then parsing them phrase by phrase, because that was a hell of a statement there. Let's start here.
How do you think this will translate to the Jewish students who are facing anti-Semitism here on campus?
So I actually met a lot of Jewish students that are in the encampment.
I have a pet peeve about up talking, where every sentence is finished on a high note. But I got to tell you, she's the worst offender. And I don't know if that's like the dialect you get from Somalia, but it's so accentuated. Remember when she said, what did she say? When she described 9/11 as some people did something? The up talking is insane. But I keep hearing it. There's a whole lot of Jewish protesters in the encampment. You hear it all the time, right? Isn't that the same thing as saying some of my favorite pro-terrorist protesters are Jewish? Hey, here's a Jewish kid who's here with us. So we can't be anti-Semitic. There's a Jewish kid here. I would dare say that I think that the Jewish kid who is throwing down with the pro-Hamas people right now, probably not Orthodox, probably not spending high holy days at synagogue, probably not avoiding shellfish and pork on a regular basis. I'm guessing. I don't know for sure. You connect the dots, though, okay? All right, so the first statement is, hey, there's plenty of Jewish kids there who also hate Israel. That's hardly an argument.
And I think it is really unfortunate that people don't care about the fact that all Jewish kids should be kept safe and that we should not have to tolerate anti-Semitism or bigotry for all Jewish students, whether they are.
Now, we'll get to the last statement in a moment, but that makes no sense. There are Jewish kids over there, too, and they don't deserve any anti-Semitic attacks. They deserve to be kept safe. They shouldn't have to suffer any bigotry. Who the hell is making those kids unsafe? They're the ones. They're the people who are. What's the word I'm looking for? They're the offenders. They're not the victims. They're the offenders. So the woman asked, "What do you say about the Jewish students who feel unsafe on this campus because of the protests?" And she said, hey, there are Jewish kids over there and they deserve to feel safe. Who the hell is making them unsafe? Nobody. So she creates a completely false scenario and then ends it with this.
They are pro-genocide or anti-genocide.
Oh, so there you go. So the people can be split into two camps. You're either pro-genocide or anti-genocide. She thinks the people who are supporting Hamas are the ones who are anti-genocide. By the way, in recent history, and I'm talking about the last, let's say, 100 years, famously, there is one ethnic and religious group on our planet who has faced the actual reality of genocide. That would be the Jewish people. When you start tossing around the word genocide, maybe you should be a little circumspect. Because she is claiming that it's the Jewish kids who support the state of Israel who are pro-genocide. There is nothing happening in Gaza that is even close to anything that can be described as genocide. Not even close. But that's the phrasing that your Ilhan Omar uses to describe this. And I bring this up. This happened a week ago. But I bring it up only to show you that this will be the result of Joe Biden's plan to airlift refugees from Gaza here to America. It will not be long before we see the next Ilhan Omar, who grew up in Gaza, came here as a result of the war that was started by Hamas, and then that congressperson will be right there in Congress, just like Ilhan Omar. This is what Joe Biden wants. This is what Susan Rice wants. This is what Barack Obama wants. This is what Valerie Jarrett wants. This is what Rashida Tlaib and the squad want. This is what Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer want. This is what George Soros wants. This is what the power behind the radical organized left in America wants. This is their goal. And quietly, with this exclusive report from CBS News, they have now announced it. And there is absolutely no reason why we should be taking refugees that Egypt won't take, that Jordan won't take, that Saudi Arabia won't take, that Iran is funding Hamas. They're so down with the cause for the Palestinians. How about Iran take these refugees? Nope. We are the only ones on planet Earth that can take them. Why? Why? Because it's a population play. You increase the numbers in that state, in that district, you get another congressman. And by the way, as pointed out by El Capitan Beefheart in our great chat, where'd it go? It also increases the electoral votes. There it is. That's right. You get another congressional district, you get more electoral votes. That's how it works. That's the formula, and that's what they want. So you know the plan. You just heard it. I mean, they didn't tell you up front. They wouldn't do that. They're not crazy. They're brilliant, actually. But I've broken it down for you. That's what this is all about. When you start hearing, and there will be Republicans, Mitt Romney will take to the floor of the Senate and say, this opposition to refugees from the Gaza territory disgusts me. That's not who we are. Of course, we'll welcome them with open arms. We are a shining city on a hill. We're the United States of America. Yeah, you know what? We got to be the shining city on the hill by having some discretion about deciding who can come to this country and who can't. I'll tell you what, we'll take just as many refugees as Egypt takes. Can we start there? Love to see that happen. How about Qatar? They've been funding a lot of this. It's a lot closer. It's a shorter plane ride. Oh, yeah, the Republicans will support this. That's not who we are. Great work, everybody. Just be ready for it. This is the argument that's being made, and now you know why they're doing it. It's not humanitarian. It's not out of great concern over those people. It's all about politics. It's all about the vote. They play the long game. I mean, you got to respect the grift. It's impressive. All right. Unlike Mitt Romney, Senator John Kennedy is a fantastic voice for reason and conservative principles in the United States Senate. And we just love it when he starts asking questions of witnesses. You remember last time when the Democrats decided to put that professional cross-country skier up there to explain climate change? It didn't end well with our bro. So now they decided, all right, we're going to bring one of our sharpest, wisest, most brilliant, brightest voices from Congress to promote the climate change agenda of the Democrats. We're bringing Jamie Raskin from Maryland. So John Kennedy was ready, and here's how it went.
I gather, Congressman, that you support trying to make the world carbon neutral by 2050?
Yes.
Okay. And I gather from your testimony that, in your judgment, part of achieving that goal is eliminating the use of fossil fuel generated energy.
Not immediately, but there are staged reductions that would be required in order for us to meet that goal. And I don't think it requires the absolute elimination of all carbon fuels, but I think something like a steady 4% per year reduction.
By 2050, how much do we need to eliminate?
Well, what the scientists are telling us is that we in order to avert the most extreme calamities, we need to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
But here's what I'm getting at. Right now, America relies on fossil fuels for 80% of its energy. By 2050, what percentage do you think that should be in order for us to become carbon neutral?
I better not opine on that because I don't know, but I will tell you this, and I see where you're going. This is a tremendous challenge, maybe the greatest challenge of our lifetimes, and I think it.
I understand. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just give me a little bit of time here.
Yeah.
Are you? Let me ask you this: how many people are there in the world? What's the world's population?
Is it now 4.5 billion?
It's about 8 billion.
Is it 8 billion?
I'm not trying to trick you.
All right.
I had to look it up myself.
I should have updated on that.
It's 8 billion people living in the
8 billion,
world.
okay.
4 billion people depend on fertilizer made by natural gas to eat. If we didn't have natural gas, 4 billion people would starve to death. What do we do about that?
So that is,
fuels.
I mean, that's precisely the challenge that we need to be confronting and that we should have been confronting all these decades. How do we disengage gradually from one model of energy consumption and move into another so that we are meeting the public health goals that are urgent, as the distinguished senator from New Mexico just.
Are you familiar with what's called a boreal forest?
No, only in the most
forests in the northernmost part of the world, just below the Arctic, in North America, in Eurasia. There millions of acres burn there naturally every year. The fires are less today than they were 150 years ago, but obviously forest fires produce carbon. And I was reading a study this weekend. I want to get my facts straight here. They said the carbon released by these naturally occurring forest fires in boreal forests, nobody lives there. Let's see. Wildfires in the boreal forests in North America and Eurasia in 1 year, 2021, released double the amount of all global CO2 produced in 2001. And 3 times as much as the Inflation Reduction Act is projected to reduce by 2030. My point is, the Inflation Reduction Act is going to end up costing about $1.2 trillion. Presumably, there are estimates about how much carbon it will reduce by 2030. American people are going to spend a lot of money, $1.2 trillion. For what? The carbon released by naturally occurring boreal forest fires in 2001 is 3 times the amount we'll save by asking the American people to spend $1.2 trillion of their money on the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, unless you're the reason that your parents drank, that doesn't make sense, does it?
So thank you. I mean, it's a trenchant question, Senator. I've heard these comparisons before between natural greenhouse gas emissions, which are obviously a product of forestry and agriculture and the agricultural revolution, and what we contribute through industrial greenhouse gas emissions. But I think it's a bit of a distraction from the real issue because we take for granted.
These are peer-reviewed studies, Congressman.
Oh, no, but the peer-reviewed studies show
exist. I promise you.
Oh, no, but I'm not doubting the science for 1 minute. I'm saying let's take the science for granted. Let's take nature for granted. Thank God that we have forests and we have greenhouse gas emissions that come from agriculture and so on. All of that is something that we take for granted. Okay. Now, we also, however, can reduce agricultural greenhouse gas emissions through looking at industrial livestock practices.
My point is, I'm going way over this last question.
Yeah.
We spend all this money. Okay. It's going to cost America about $1 trillion a year to make us carbon neutral by 2050.
Yes.
We don't lower world temperatures a scintilla of a degree if you look at the boreal forest fires. So what do?
Oh, I got you. But would you dispute that it would be far worse if we do nothing? In other words, if we stay on the path that big oil would have us stay on, are you denying that we would be in a situation where the Earth's temperature goes up?
That's not your goal in trying to make us carbon neutral. Is to be. It's a zero-sum game. Your goal is not to make it better. Your point is, as I understand it, that the world will end if we don't achieve the carbon neutrality.
Right. We want to prevent calamity. We want to make our one planetary habitat as livable as possible. Right.
Do we need to spend trillions of dollars fighting the boreal forest fires?
Well, let's go back to the Inflation Reduction Act, which you invoked before. Most of the money which you're describing as being spent on climate change measures was actually tax incentives for the stimulation of renewable energy.
Agree, but they're not stopping the boreal forest fires. I mean, we spend all this money and we reduce carbon, and the boreal forest fires just spit out 3 times the amount of carbon.
All right. I would love to read a peer-reviewed study on that. I mean, if we need a boreal forest.
Economist magazine, they talk about it all the time.
All right. I will check that out. But I mean, is the suggestion that we need a boreal forest fire department?
I'm asking you. I mean, well, what y'all's position is, I get it. Nobody's perfect. Oil and gas is bad, and they're destroying the world. Let's get rid of them.
Yeah.
Okay. If we do that, that's going to cost a lot? If we do that, is the world going to be okay? No.
I got you. I see where you're going. But let's, if I might, Mr. Chairman, if I could just take your beautiful state, which is very close to my heart. I lived in New Orleans a couple of times.
Come back and spend money.
But I definitely will. I plan to do that. Louisiana has traditionally dealt with hurricanes, but is now experiencing hurricanes of much greater velocity and much greater ferocity under the climate change conditions.
Really?
Well, then perhaps the science that I've been seeing is
the damages are higher because Louisiana's wealthier and there's more to destroy. But if you look at the studies on the intensity, they're about the same.
All right, but
Senator Kane is waiting.
I'm sorry.
We were just having a good talk.
No, and I'm enjoying this. Actually, I'm not complaining.
I'm sorry, Timmy. I'm sorry. Thank you, Congressman.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. And that you saw exactly what was going on there. Raskin wasn't ever actually answering the question, and either he truly is moronic and didn't understand the point Kennedy was making, or he was playing dumb because he doesn't want to face the reality of the question. What, we need a boreal fire department? No. The point is you can do all of this and spend all of this money that we don't have to achieve this goal that you can't define and refuse to tell us if it will even make a discernible difference in moving the needle on climate change. But the whole goal is to reduce carbon emissions. And we do all of that, and then we get one forest fire in one country, like the Boreal forest fire, and it's all negated. Or let's say we get a volcano, and it's all negated. Or even more importantly, you turn to the country of China. This is video of Sichuan province. Those are coal-powered factories. You know, the kind of factories we're not allowed to make anymore here in America. And God forbid in the United Kingdom or any other Western European country in the Western civilized world, but in China and in India, oh, they're all over coal. They can't quit coal. They love their coal. For every coal plant we shut down here, they make, 17,000 of them. I'm exaggerating. I don't know what the number is. They now emit more CO2 than any of the entire developed world combined. Can I say that again? China emits more carbon dioxide through their plants like this than every single other country on the planet combined. All the sacrifices that we're asked to make, all the money that we're asked to spend, every kind of stupid idea that the Biden administration and AOC and Bernie Sanders have embedded into our government under the guise of the Green New Deal that nobody ever voted on. The one time they did vote on it, it wasn't called the Green New Deal. It was called the Inflation Reduction Act. All of those things we're doing means nothing because it's all being washed out by China. And by the way, I don't buy the premise that increased CO2 is actually making hurricanes stronger. You heard that move right there. Well, you're in Louisiana and your hurricanes are worse because of this, which, by the way, isn't an answer to the question about CO2 and whether we should do any of this if the Borean forest fires negate it all. This is what they do. They immediately flip to emotions. Why are we doing all of this? Why are we spending all this money when you can't tell us what difference it will make? And oh, by the way, even if we do reduce carbon emissions, it's going to be completely wiped out and no difference will be made because there's a forest fire in Borea. And the only answer is, well, the hurricanes in Louisiana are getting a lot more severe. That's not an answer. But they try to prey on emotions. And they try to say, well, you're right, hurricanes are bad, so we've got to do something. And by the way, he specifically cited Louisiana because he wants people in Louisiana to see that clip and then be pissed at their senator. That's right. Hurricanes destroyed my home and Kennedy's not doing anything about it. Someone's got to do something about it. So everybody start driving electric cars and it's not going to do anything. The last I checked, the United States of America, we're on the same planet as China. And if it's really global warming, if it's really a global problem, then we can stop driving every combustion engine that we have. We can stop flying every jet engine we've got. We can turn off all of our air conditioners. We can shut it all down. And it won't matter a difference because China's doing this. And last I checked, we're on the same planet. And if it's a global problem, then us doing all of this literally means nothing. If you really think it's going to save the globe, which I don't think it does. And that's the point Kennedy makes. That's the point so brilliantly that he just delivered. And that's what Jamie Raskin pretended not to understand. Or he really is an ignorant bastard. You take your pick. That's it for today's show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support. We'll see you tomorrow. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.